Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It was an insignificant detail that initially seemed trivial, and David barely paid attention to it. He had left town for work, as he occasionally did, and, as usual, shared with Megan, his wife, the detailed itinerary of his trip. In turn, Megan had given him her schedule. After so many years of marriage, this had become routine for both of them. David, known for his cheerful and friendly personality, worked as a negotiator and problem solver in his company. Although he didn't travel often, a few business trips per year were part of his routine. This particular trip was scheduled to last an entire week, and he didn't expect to return until Saturday. He planned to take a 10:15 p.m. flight that night, arriving late after midnight. Not wanting to disturb Megan, he insisted she not pick him up from the airport. He intended to take a shuttle that would drop him home around 2:30 a.m. on Sunday. However, on Thursday morning, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The negotiations he had been involved in concluded much earlier than expected. The deal was signed before noon, and his business partners had to rush off to attend to other matters. Seeing the opportunity to return home early, David rescheduled his flight. By 2:45 p.m., he was already seated on the plane, ready to fly back. During the flight, David decided to call Megan to let her know he'd be home earlier than planned. Using the in-flight phone, he dialed her mobile, but, as expected, she didn't answer. She was at work. Determined to reach her, he started searching his briefcase for her office number and called there. "Jensen, Sharon and Anderson, how may I direct your call?" greeted the secretary. "Hi, can I speak to Jennifer?" David asked, referring to Megan's secretary, who usually took his calls. "I'm sorry, but Jennifer won't be in today or tomorrow. Is there something I can help you with?" the secretary responded, maintaining a friendly tone. Slightly confused, David said, "In that case, may I speak with Mrs. Conroy? May I ask who's calling?" The secretary's voice became a bit more cautious. "It's her husband," David replied. After a brief pause, the secretary returned to the conversation. "I'm afraid Mrs. Conroy is currently busy. I'm not sure when she'll be available. Would you like to leave a message?" David hesitated for a moment. "No, that's fine. I'll talk to her at home tonight. Just let her know I called." He hung up the phone, but the conversation left him feeling uneasy. Only about half an hour later did he realize what had been bothering him. Megan had told him the night before that she would be in the office all day. While it was possible she was busy or in a client meeting, something about Jennifer's absence troubled him. Jennifer rarely missed work unless Megan did as well, and even then, it was usually planned in advance. The fact that neither Megan nor Jennifer were in the office seemed odd to him. When David landed, the flight was precisely on time. By 7:30 p.m. he was home, but the house was dark. It was unusual for Megan not to be home. She typically returned earlier than him. He began his usual routine, unpacking his suitcase, tossing his clothes into the laundry basket, and changing into something more comfortable. By 9 p.m., with no sign of Megan, he decided to make himself a simple grilled cheese sandwich. Settling in front of the TV, he tried to distract himself, but the anxiety continued to build. Could something have happened to her? If there had been an emergency, surely someone would have informed him. Unable to shake the growing concern, David began pacing around the house. He tried calling her mobile again, but this time the call went straight to voicemail. Her phone was turned off. Strange, he thought. Why would she have it turned off? By 10 p.m., his worry had turned into real anxiety. Just then, his phone rang. He quickly answered, feeling a wave of relief at hearing Megan's voice on the other end. "I was starting to worry," she said with a hint of concern in her voice. "As usual, I called the hotel after dinner, and they told me you had already checked out." "Is everything going smoothly?" she asked. "Yes, just a few changes in plans," he replied. "Where are you now?" he continued. "At home, actually. I just finished cleaning up the kitchen. It's unusually quiet in the house today," he said, looking around the empty space. "You will come back on Sunday as we agreed, right?" she asked, hope evident in her voice. "Absolutely. "I'll be here all day on Sunday," he assured her. "We moved all the meetings to the company's main office this morning. You can reach me on my mobile if needed," he added, his gaze lingering on the dimly lit, silent kitchen. The absence of her presence weighed on him, and the dirty dishes from dinner were stacked high in the sink. "Did anything strange happen today? I tried calling you at the office this afternoon," he pressed. "No, not really. I was probably talking to John Sanchez at the time," she replied, sounding distracted. "John's been helping me sort out the Melrose account all week," she explained with a tone David couldn't quite decipher. "Honestly, I owe him for it." "Well, my love, once we wrap up the account, I think they'll offer me a partnership. Mr. Jensen practically confirmed it." Megan's excitement was evident. "That's just fantastic. We'll have to celebrate," he said, though his words lacked enthusiasm. "Sorry I can't be with you today to start celebrating." "Don't worry. We'll celebrate when you come back on Sunday," she reassured him. "Please don't be late," she added softly. "I miss you. The bed feels so empty without you." They talked a little more, mostly about household matters, before ending the call. After hanging up, David sat in silence, the weight of Megan's lies pressing on him. A knot of nausea formed in his stomach, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. Until that evening, he had always believed their marriage was solid and their love unshakable. Now, he wasn't so sure. David couldn't sleep for a long time, tossing and turning, trying to find peace in the same bed Megan had described as lonely. He finally drifted off, but by 7 in the morning, he was awake again, staring at the ceiling, feeling empty. By 10, reality hit him. Megan wasn't planning to come home. He picked up the phone and called her office. When the secretary answered instead of Jennifer, he casually asked, "Can I speak with Mrs. Conroy?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Conroy is unavailable at the moment," the secretary replied. "That's all right, it's not urgent. I'll try again Monday morning," he said, keeping his tone steady. "Great! Mrs. Conroy will be in the office at 9 a.m. on Monday. You can call then," the secretary added cheerfully. David had heard enough. Hanging up the phone, he gathered the necessary information from Megan's files, got into the car, and drove away. They rarely used this SUV, saving it for trips to the mountains or towing the camping trailer. No one in their social circle knew about the vehicle. Leaving his sedan behind, he drove to Megan's office. Slowly circling the parking lot, he confirmed his suspicions. Her car wasn't there. His heart sank as he left the parking lot and headed to the address in her files, which led to John Sanchez's house. The home was in an upscale neighborhood, surrounded by tall pines and hidden behind a tall, red brick wall. As he slowly drove past, he spotted Megan's car parked by the garage, out of sight from the main driveway. His vision blurred with emotion, and he pulled over, forcing himself to calm down. After a few minutes, he wiped away his tears. David continued driving, heading downtown where he stopped at a small cafe for breakfast. It was already 11:50 a.m. when he sat down and ordered Belgian waffles and tea. His stomach was too upset for coffee, and he wasn't sure he could eat the waffles. But he forced himself to take slow, deliberate bites, finishing the meal in an hour. He paid and left the cafe, still feeling a heavy weight on his heart. Unable to resist, he drove past Sanchez's house again. Megan's car was still in the same spot. He aimlessly drove around the city for another hour before returning once more. Her car hadn't moved. Resigned, David returned home, his mind swirling with thoughts of betrayal. As time passed, he reflected on the broken parts of their marriage and the life he once cherished. The day slipped away in agonizing, empty contemplation. He couldn't shake one question. Would he ever find a way to smile again? He was so exhausted that he didn't have the energy to prepare a proper meal, instead snacking on whatever he could find, snacks, fruit juices, soda, whenever he felt hungry. His otherwise uneventful evening was interrupted by a phone call from Megan at 10:45 p.m., just as he was about to go to bed. She once again complained about something she had mentioned many times before, telling him how large and empty their bed felt without him. David quietly smirked, trying to mask the fatigue in his voice, and replied that she really didn't understand how lonely a big bed could feel. Puzzled, Megan began to ask him what he meant. David brushed off her question, acknowledging her loneliness and agreeing that it must be hard to sleep alone. He reassured her of his love before ending the call. However, as the night slowly approached midnight, he still couldn't bring himself to get into bed. Thoughts swirled in his head that he couldn't quiet. Did she truly love him? Was she punishing him for something he didn't remember? No, it wasn't about him. It was about her. But what was it? What was bothering her? And most importantly, could he fix it? Was he even capable of fixing it? He spent the night tossing and turning, once again unable to sleep. When morning came, he still felt as restless as he had the night before. By 7 a.m., he sat in the dimly lit living room, the curtains tightly drawn. Around 9 a.m., he heard a familiar sound, Megan's car pulling into the garage. A few minutes later, Megan entered through the door connecting the garage to the kitchen, carrying a small bag of belongings. From his dark leather chair, David silently observed her. She was wearing a plaid skirt and a sleeveless red blouse, the top buttons undone. Her face looked calm, almost content, as she moved through the kitchen. Around her neck hung the necklace he had given her on their 5th anniversary, its soft gleam catching the rare rays of light that made it into the room. As she passed the sink, she stopped abruptly, her gaze landing on the pile of dirty dishes. David hadn't bothered to clean up after breakfast, or even put away the glasses from the night before. Her eyes shifted to the kettle still on the stove, water inside heating up. Megan's face showed signs of concern as she scanned the kitchen. She moved cautiously, her steps slow and deliberate, as the dim light enveloped the room. She stopped at the entrance to the dining room, her eyes taking in the heavy curtains covering the sliding glass doors that led to the patio. Her eyes seemed to search for something in the room. Finally, she set her bag down on a chair and hesitantly stepped into the living room, heading toward the fireplace. Picking up the fire poker, she turned toward the room, and her gaze finally landed on David. He sat silently, lifting a cup of tea to his lips. Megan gasped, her hand flying to her chest in shock. "Oh my God, David, you scared me. When did you come home?" Her voice trembled, a mixture of fear and surprise. David let the silence hang in the air, the tension growing. Although only a few moments had passed, it felt like an eternity. When he finally spoke, his voice, once warm, was now cold and distant. "A few days ago." Megan's knees buckled, and she collapsed into the chair across from him, her face frozen in shock. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call? Where were you?" she stammered. David took another slow sip of tea, his tone cold and devoid of emotion. "I called, Thursday afternoon. You weren't home, and you weren't at the office. Jennifer wasn't there either." He paused, letting the silence fill the space between them once again before continuing. "I was here, sitting in this chair when you called. I spent the night in that big, empty bed you were talking about." Outside, life went on. A car drove by, children argued in the distance, and a dog barked. Inside, the living room felt suffocating, the heavy blinds and curtains barely letting any light in. The only other sound was Megan's quiet sobs. Her crying was barely audible as David took another sip of tea, his voice remaining impassive. "Somehow, I doubt the bed you've been sleeping in the past 2 nights has been that empty. Don't you think it's time to tell me what's really going on, Megan? Can you explain what happened?" Megan's sobs grew louder, her hands covering her face as she shook her head in denial. "David, I love you," she sobbed. "It's not about us, David. Please try to understand that. I felt like I had no other choice. This isn't a reflection on us or my love for you." David stared at her, his face frozen in shock. "How can you say that, Megan? How can something that feels like betrayal not affect our relationship?" "I didn't feel like I had a choice," Megan whispered. "John helped me when I was in a terrible situation. I had to repay him somehow, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. My love for you remains the same." David stayed silent for a while. He slowly took a sip of his tea, allowing the silence to stretch between them. Then, after a pause, he stood up and asked calmly, "Do you need anything from the kitchen?" Megan just shook her head without lifting her gaze. Returning to his seat, David leaned forward, his expression intense. "Tell me, why did you feel so indebted to Sanchez that you broke your promises to me? Did he demand something in return for helping with the Melrose case?" Megan's eyes widened in surprise. "No, David. It wasn't like that at all. He didn't force me, and he didn't expect anything in return. He helped because he cared, because he knew I wasn't at fault. He would never have asked for something like that." David took a deep breath, rubbing his temples in frustration. "Then why, Megan? Why did you offer him something so personal if he didn't ask for it? What am I missing?" "It wasn't like that," Megan insisted again. "I've told you before, this isn't about us. I felt like he deserved something for his kindness." David's face darkened. "Did I fail you somehow? Is this something I did that pushed you to this?" "No!" Megan's voice trembled, rising. "I've told you so many times it's not your fault. I had to find a way to thank him for what he did. His help with Melrose wasn't just for me, it was for both of us. I wasn't thinking about myself, it wasn't about my feelings for you." The room fell into silence again before David spoke slowly. "Megan, if you're so defensive about how I'm describing it, does that mean that you enjoyed it?" The silence that followed was almost unbearable. After a long pause, David broke it again. "Do you remember how I always told you that I belonged only to you, and you told me the same? How many times did you promise that you were mine, and I never needed to ask? Do you remember how deeply I believed we were meant for each other?" Megan's voice trembled as she replied, "David, I still believe that. I belong to you." David's tone was frighteningly calm, though his voice wavered slightly. "Then how can you claim that this has nothing to do with us, Megan? You gave him the most precious thing, the thing that meant everything to me, and now you've shared it with someone else." Megan's face twisted in grief, but David didn't stop. His voice was filled with disbelief as he continued, "You say this man didn't even ask for what you gave him? By your own words, he didn't expect it. Did you have to persuade him? And then you say this has nothing to do with me?" Tears streamed down Megan's cheeks and she sobbed, "David, this doesn't change who I am. I love you, I'm still yours. Nothing has changed." David's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he spoke, his voice barely controlled. "Megan, everything changes us. Every choice we make, everything that happens to us leaves a mark. You spent 2 nights with another man, sharing something that should only exist between people who love each other." His voice trembled, and he paused to regain his composure. "How many nights, Megan? Only 2? Or were there more?" The silence that followed was suffocating, David's words hanging in the air as he struggled to keep his emotions in check. David's voice became cold and distant again. "God help me, Megan. I can't stop thinking about how many others might have had what should have belonged only to me. You say you belong to me, but without realizing it, you expose yourself." Megan shook her head sharply, her body trembling as deep sobs took over. She couldn't respond with words, only denying his accusations through her tears. Her posture seemed to collapse inward. Her shoulders slumped, her elbows rested heavily on her knees, and her face was buried in her hands, with her hair falling over her face. Time seemed to drag on slowly. David remained motionless, lost in his thoughts, while his wife seemed to shrink further into the chair opposite him. The room was filled with soft, dim light, and the only sounds came from outside, neighbors enjoying the sunny day. Inside, only Megan's muffled sobs broke the silence, until the clock on the mantel softly chimed noon. "Megan," David spoke again, this time in a softer tone, "I don't know where we go from here. I love you just as much as I did when I left last week. But I feel lost. You keep saying your betrayal has nothing to do with me, but you don't understand how heavy what you've done really is." He paused, letting the silence fill the space between them before continuing. "My trust in you is shattered, and I have no idea how to rebuild it, if that's even possible. And if you're hinting that I should betray you in return to balance things out, then we're already done. First of all, if my loyalty means so little to you, it shows how little you value me. And secondly, 2 wrongs don't make a right. 2 wrongs only make things worse," he added quietly. He slowly rose from his chair, carefully placed his empty cup on the mantel, and walked toward the dining room. Pulling the curtains aside, he gazed at their perfect sunlit backyard. His next words were barely audible, and Megan had to strain to hear them. "Megan, I want to shake you so hard that your teeth rattle." He sighed heavily. "I never wanted to hurt a woman, especially you, my wife, the woman I love. And now, meeting with John Sanchez is a bad idea, no matter how much you insist that you started everything with him." Megan quietly sobbed, perhaps in protest, but David continued. "You say it wasn't his idea, but now that he has you without putting in any effort, do you think he won't expect it again?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "No matter what you say to him, he sees you as available. Maybe he doesn't think you're available to everyone, but he knows you're available to him. It's easy for him now, and soon he'll stop." This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.